Week 15. Week 14's just about wrapped up. I know we have one more game tonight, but mostly wrapped up. And so we're on to fantasy football playoffs, and we're done with bye weeks. And now we have roughly 3 weeks of playoffs, depending on if you technically started playoffs last week or how many weeks your playoffs are for your league, where you may be competing for winning your league, or maybe a consolation prize, or just trying not to be last place.
Yeah, let's start off with a couple things that happened over the weekend. For me, anyway, I was caught off guard by a couple of players being out in week 14. I really didn't think much about Kenneth Walker being added to the injury report last week on Thursday. We didn't see anything really happen to him, and then he popped up on the injury report, and we weren't even paying a whole lot of attention to that. And then on Saturday, they marked him out. And I should have taken our own advice, because a couple weeks ago, we were talking about handcuffs and how you should have picked up Charbonnet already as a just-in-case player, and I didn't do that. And on Saturday, when Walker was marked out, the person I was playing against went very quickly and picked up Charbonnet, who had a crazy game on Sunday. And now I'm going to be out because it was kind of a win and make the playoffs and lose and you're out situation. And I thought it was funny because at 1:00, I had Justin Jefferson. Things were all going good. I get a couple touchdowns out of Justin Jefferson. And then here come the 4:00 games, and Charbonnet just puts an end to that.
Yeah. I didn't see Walker being out either, and I was similarly doing the rush, move people around.
Yeah. So another thing that popped up was I get an alert anytime somebody drops somebody in the league that I'm commissioner of. I think you can do that regardless. You know, if you want to get a notification anytime somebody makes a transaction in your league, you can. This is on ESPN. And so late last night, I got an alert that somebody dropped Ladd McConkey, and I was super surprised. But the problem was she had waited till the very last minute, and everything else had locked when he was deemed out. And so to pick somebody up, she had to actually drop Ladd McConkey. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is now McConkey is sitting in our waiver wire pool for this week. And he's not somebody that we're going to mention that you should go out there targeting to pick up because he's over 80% owned in leagues. He's not somebody that you're scraping looking for that we want to highlight. But that's why I wanted to bring this up, because there may be players out there, better players than we're telling you to target, because somebody had to make a decision like that, especially if you don't have an IR spot in your league. So always be on the lookout for players like that are great players that get marked out one week and get dropped to the waiver wire pool. You want to move on to week 14 injuries. They just keep coming, don't they?
Yeah, there were a couple that were pretty bad, not fun to watch. And let's start off with the quarterbacks, because there are some that are done for the season now.
There are. So quarterbacks, we'll talk about the minor injury first, Justin Herbert. He got banged up during that game, and he was limping, leaving the field at halftime. But of course, he came back and gutted through it and finished the game. So we're going to have to watch for the official reports, and he probably won't practice, but he's Herbert. He knows what he's doing. I 100% expect him to start against Tampa Bay this weekend. And I really like this game. So I really want Herbert and Ladd McConkey to be back, because then it's going to be a fun game to get to see him throw. And we've been seeing him throw more and more, but now we get Tampa Bay at home. That's great.
Our listeners will have to check out our DFS episode later this week, because I have a feeling there's going to be a stack there or something. I don't remember what time that game is. So if it works for that being our Sunday afternoon, that's going to be a fun one.
It must be a 4:00 game because it's out in LA. So It'll be one of the late ones, but I'm sure we'll be targeting that game. Man, DFS, we'll just take a minute. DFS got all messed up this weekend with those last minute running backs that were sitting out. And we were just changing to Charbonnet, Guerendo. Well, we knew about Guerendo, but Charbonnet threw a real wrench in things, I felt like. Yeah. Anyhow, back from DFS. Another quarterback that got injured was Derek Carr. He broke his hand, wrist. He's done for the season. He fell with his arm outstretched, which is never good to fall that way. And it was ugly. It was just one of those in your mind. You're like, that's not supposed to be going that direction. So he did break it. They verified that today. On the other side, we also had Aidan O'Connell, who left the game in an air cast. And today they're like, nah, he didn't break it. It's just a bone bruise. But thankfully, we're past all our bye weeks, and therefore you are past having to use AOC as well.
But hopefully you don't have some of these running back and injuries that you're trying to make up for. Let's start with Achane, who left the game and returned.
Yeah, left the game, checked for a concussion, and then he was back. So finished the game. So assuming no setbacks, because every now and then we see a concussion pop back up, then he should be good to go in week 15.
Another one that happened that we were so excited for, and I really can't see San Francisco losing another running back.
No, I can't
Guerendo.
even imagine what they're thinking. Yeah, losing Guerendo now. They just can't catch a break at running back. Officially, he has a foot sprain, a low ankle sprain, something like that, a foot injury. The problem is they play Thursday night. So they play the Rams on Thursday night on a short week. We're almost certain to not have Guerendo on Thursday night with this injury that he left the game and didn't finish. When we get to our targets, you know we're going to have the new 49ers running back as your target to pick up.
Another one that was pretty sad to see, because this was only his second, third game. Jonathon Brooks, the non-contact and injury where he tore his ACL, the same injury from a year ago.
Yeah, he tore it again, and I can't imagine how devastating that must feel and so frustrating. Hopefully he can get it repaired and has a little chat with his surgeon to repair it a little bit differently, perhaps, and be back maybe next year. We were all so excited and heading into the playoffs. We were seeing him get more and more workload. And I was watching that game when it happened, and you just knew it was not good.
Yeah, I think he said he's going to take a couple of days before he talks to the press because he's having to work through all the emotions that come with re-injuring the same.
To go, a whole year. Recover a whole year, and then have it happen again. That's just devastating. Our last running back that got hurt, he was already banged up, was Bucky Irving for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he left that game, didn't return this time. Sean Tucker came in and picked up the slack, as well as Rachaad White, and they both looked great doing it. The Buccaneers travel to the Chargers, which we were already talking about for this week, and we'll have to watch Bucky Irving's status and see if he can play, if he travels with the team or not, or if they decide to save him for a week and give him an extra week off. I can see both happening. They love Bucky Irving. If he removed himself early enough in that game, then we might see him this weekend. Otherwise, he might get a week to rest and really recuperate.
Well, let's move on to wide receivers. Pittsburgh's down a wide receiver with George Pickens.
Yeah, this one was a little bit of a surprise. I saw reports. First, I saw he's definitely going to be out. Then I saw reports he's going to play. And then all of a sudden he was inactive on Sunday. So I'm sure he caught some people by surprise that were planning on playing him. He's battling that dreaded hamstring injury that lingers and lingers and lingers. So we'll see if he can make it back this week. They have a huge matchup this weekend against Philadelphia, and both teams are still hoping that they can chase down that number one seed, and they're both playing from behind right now, behind the Chiefs and the Lions. So they want that number one playoff spot so they can have that bye. I think maybe he got that extra time off, maybe so he can be 100% in week 15, but we'll definitely have to monitor his status all week and see if he's practicing.
Well, Pittsburgh's schedule was hard, too, because they pretty much hit the point of they started their divisional matchups, and almost every game for the rest of the season was a divisional matchup.
Yeah, except this one. This is, I think, the one game that isn't, and they've got to play the Eagles. Poor Pittsburgh.
Yep. Also, Keon Coleman surprised me. I was expecting him to play. And
yeah, we thought
didn't see him.
He was going to be back. But he didn't make it back yet again, another week. And the Bills travel to Detroit on Sunday. They're also trying to play catch up, especially after losing to the Rams on Sunday in that shootout, that 44-42 shootout. It was a lot of fun watching Josh Allen set records and 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns. That was amazing. But imagine if he had Keon Coleman and been able to actually had a deep threat target. That would have been a lot more fun. And he's going to need that, I think, in Detroit on Sunday. So I hope we get Keon Coleman back.
I hope so too. Move on to tight ends. I think there's only one tight end, but we like this tight end. Will Dissly injured his shoulder?
Yeah, there are better tight end options out there. He was a good fill-in, or he would have been a good fill-in. He left pretty early in that game. If you got caught with Dissly, then I'm sorry. And hopefully this week with all the buys gone, then you don't have to scrape the bottom of the barrel unless you're like some of us who drafted Kyle Pitts and we're not getting any action out of Kyle Pitts either.
Well, let's move on to who you might pick up then if you drafted Kyle Pitts and need someone else or had Will Dissly.
At least this week, I don't feel like we have to go scraping the bottom of the barrel because we've got everyone on bye. This week is a little bit more about who might be better than who you have on your team than just finding somebody that has a pulse and a good matchup to play. Some of the wide receivers that I have on my list that I'm going to be targeting this week. First one, Adam Thielen, Carolina, 65% available. He was on this list last week, but apparently people weren't out there picking him up. He saw 11 targets and racked up 102 yards this week on 9 catches. And this was the second week in a row that his numbers looked like that. The Panthers are getting it together and looking much stronger, but they still manage to lose every week. So maybe they're locking up that top draft pick, but getting in all the practice that they want. And I mean, they were in it with the Eagles, and that guy that placed that $3.5 million money line bet on the Eagles must have been worrying there for a little while. Next up, they get the Cowboys, and then Arizona, and then Tampa Bay. All of those matchups are very good for Carolina, and therefore Adam Thielen. That Week 17 matchup against Tampa Bay could win your championship if you're in it.
I know we just talked about him being inactive. What do you think? Is Coleman coming back? He's only 50% rostered, so he's still out there. And we've seen Shakir put up some good numbers. So if he comes back he could.
But like we talked about, they're going to need Keon Coleman against Detroit if they're going to beat them. And next up, then they have the New England Patriots, which is a pretty soft matchup, and then the New York Jets. We also saw what Miami did to the Jets over the weekend as well. The next two are really good. He's really needed against Detroit, and I'm sure that the Bills are hoping that he can start on Sunday. He was practicing, and he's worth a spot to stash him away.
What about, you mentioned that Ladd McConkey was out. What about Quentin Johnston? Because we've seen Quentin Johnston get a lot of focus.
He did, and they're great pickups. It's definitely something to monitor and watch. You could stash them away if you've got an extra roster spot that you're not using. So Quentin Johnston or Joshua Palmer, great pickups in that matchup against Tampa Bay. I expect there's going to be a lot of passing. So even if McConkey is there, then the injury to Dissly may give more targets to Quentin Johnston and or Joshua Palmer. You're kind of hit and miss now. It's a little bit like, those Packer wide receivers.
What about
but
Cedric
in a great
Tillman?
matchup? Yeah, Cedric Tillman is worth a mention, I feel like. He's only 50% available. He's missed 2 games with a concussion. But 2 games with a concussion, we should be really expecting him to be back this week. And he returns, giving Jameis Winston yet another target to toss it to. And we've seen that Jameis Winston is happy to chuck it. We're going to get to him because he's going to show up on our quarterback list. And he's averaging 43 passing attempts each game, which is crazy. Cedric Tillman would be another weapon for him to use. Next up, they've got the Kansas City Chiefs. And we've all thought that the Kansas City defense was good, but now they seem to be relaxing, falling apart a little bit. It's not as scary as it once sounded. And after that, they've got one of the matchups that I'm excited to also see in Cincinnati. So Cincinnati and Cleveland, two teams that want to throw the ball. Can we hit 100 points maybe?
I think we'll at least hit 60. Everyone gives up 30 points.
Yeah, well, I hope they're going to, beat the Rams and Bills from last night, their 86-point total. So I hope that Cincinnati-Cleveland game is gonna set the record for this year anyway.
Let's move on to running backs. Who's behind Guerendo? Since we know Mason's out, McCaffrey's out, now Guerendo's out, San Francisco has to have someone to run the ball.
Hey, they do. His name is Patrick Taylor. I don't know a lot about him, but he got 8 carries and a touchdown after Guerendo left the game. So 8.5 points in a quarter. It's not a bad day. I'm sure you weren't playing him. 49ers are definitely hurting, and they'll have to see when and if Guerendo can come back. Like we said, this week is the Rams on Thursday night, so that short week is making things extremely doubtful. You can also just pick up Patrick Taylor so your opponents can't get him, which is how my opponent that I was talking about with Charbonnet, they originally just picked up every good running back that was out there to make sure that I couldn't. So on Saturday, he ended up picking up Braylon Allen and Charbonnet, and they were sitting on his bench until right before game time. I thought he was still going to go with Harris for the Steelers, and he ended up putting Charbonnet in, which smart move, but it was very obvious that the whole plan was just to make sure that I couldn't get them because I had Derrick Henry and I didn't have another running back. So I was scrambling for a running back. And yes, I ended up playing our recommendation, Sincere McCormick, who is still another option. I don't really love Sincere. He did fine for me. He beat his projections over the weekend. Would have done a little bit better, but AOC stole one of his touchdowns. It still wouldn't have saved me with the way Charbonnet was playing. And not only did he have Charbonnet, but he had Kyron Williams. I was kind of dead with those two. Anyhow, Sincere McCormick is 85% available. You're probably not that desperate since you should have your whole team to play. But he did have a decent day. They were definitely giving him the ball, and he wasn't sharing a whole lot with Amir Abdullah. But we'll have to wait and see if Zamir White or Alexander Madison can make it back this week. They were both out again on Sunday. And now AOC's probably out for a few weeks, if not the rest of the season. And they have Desmond Ridder at quarterback. That's not very exciting. Next up, they play Atlanta, which isn't that bad of a matchup. And then they get Jacksonville and New Orleans, which is actually a good matchup. Anyhow, there's also, if you're really desperate, Tank Bigsby is available. But with all the injuries at quarterback for the Jaguars, it's just not that exciting. They all know they want to run the ball, so there's not a lot of room there usually.
Well, and I think you like saying look for a winning home team for their running back.
That's preferred. So that is why I would rather go with Patrick Taylor for the 49ers. Although I guess they're still above 50%. They're still in their division chase. So yeah, Patrick Taylor, better than your losing team options.
Well, let's move on to quarterbacks because I think the two on our list we never would have guessed would be on our list at the start of the season.
We wouldn't. Yeah. It takes, 14 weeks of data to convince us that, hey, we might want Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. He's 95% available. Next, he gets to play the Dallas Cowboys at home in Carolina, and then the Arizona Cardinals, and then he has to travel to Tampa Bay. All fairly good matchups. It's kind of amazing that head coach Dave Canales, he was brought in to turn Bryce Young around. He's known for working magic with quarterbacks. He is the one that was credited with turning Baker and having Baker's great season last year before coming to the Panthers. So Canales has got this history, and I was doubting him at the beginning of the season, especially when even he was benching Bryce Young. But Bryce Young's actually starting to look like maybe maybe he does belong as a starter. So he's got some great matchups. If you are in a situation where your quarterback gets hurt or you don't have the best matchup, then you might be looking to Bryce Young to see if he can get it done for you with those great matchups.
Those are some good matchups. Yeah.
They are, for sure.
I think the first one that this next one has isn't as good of a matchup. Jameis Winston, who's 65% available. Next up, Kansas City. But then he gets that the Cleveland-Cincinnati game we were just talking about, where maybe 80, 100-point game.
Fingers crossed. That's what I want to see. And then he gets Miami. All I know is if they are behind, they are going to let Jameis Winston throw the ball. In the last 6 games that he started, he's averaging 43 times a game. It's actually higher than that if you take out that one win against Pittsburgh, the Snow Globe game, because they were in that game the entire time and it was ugly conditions. And in that one, he only threw the ball 27 times. So that's kind of skewing this just a little bit. But still, 43 times a game is kind of a crazy average to have. If he gets Cedric Tillman back in this game as well, I still even like the matchup against Kansas City, and then I'll stash him away just to play him against Cincinnati.
I think it'll be a good point total game there. Might be better than some of the other starting quarterbacks we have.
I think so. Yeah, like CJ Stroud. I have CJ Stroud in one of my leagues. He hasn't been very exciting, so I'd much rather start Jameis Winston one of those weeks.
I mean, I think Jameis Winston might be better than Mahomes, especially that week of the Cincinnati game.
Definitely could be.
Well, let's move on to tight ends. We only have one for suggestion here. It's one that I like to recommend from time to time if you really need one. Hunter Henry with the New England Patriots. He's 60% available. They just came off their bye week.
Yeah, coming off their bye week, Hunter Henry looks to have a good matchup. They're traveling out to Arizona, but he's seeing almost 20% of the targets. And then after Arizona, he's got Buffalo and then the LA Chargers. He should continue to get a lot of work in this offense, and they have limited talent at wide receiver as well. And they've just really favored Hunter Henry.
Any defense recommendations?
There are a lot of unknown defenses to choose from this week with the injuries that we discussed at quarterback. One of my favorites is probably the Washington Commanders. They're at the New Orleans Saints. They're not at home, but they're coming off their bye week, and they get to play the Saints, who are going to be starting Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler because Derek Carr broke his hand. That's got to be a great opportunity for maybe a pick six, even though the Washington Commanders haven't had the strongest defense this year, but it's just a great situation. Other mentions that come with a little hesitation for me are the New York Jets, who are going to be playing the Jaguars, who are starting Mac Jones. And even though the Jaguars squeaked out that win 10-6, it's still Mac Jones, and they don't look good. But the Jets haven't looked that good either. The defense has looked better than the offense, but still, I still like it. If you're looking for that option, take the Jets over the Jaguars. And then the one that I give a lot of pause when I start picking Atlanta Falcons players or defenses. So the Falcons next up get to play the Raiders, and they're at the Raiders. So Desmond Ridder is starting, and last year he was a Falcon, so he gets to play his old team. I never usually like that. I feel like there's some revenge, but I don't know that Desmond Ridder's got any revenge in him or the ability to do anything revengeful and good. I like the Falcons. They're kind of having a meltdown, but maybe they can pull it together and get a pick six or get a few turnovers off of Ridder.
I think that then wraps us up. I do hope that Atlanta has a good weekend next weekend. Maybe gets the pick six. good luck if you're headed to the waiver wire. And like Judy said, check for who people are dropping, because we talked about people who are mostly unowned, which means we're not going to mention when Lad McConkey is dropped. We're not going to mention when Breece Hall is dropped. Keep an eye out. You might find something even better that it'd be a good time to pick up.
Good luck crushing your championship this week if you're playing, or staying alive in the toilet bowl.
If you do find yourself in the toilet bowl and you're looking for something a little more exciting after being frustrated, join us later this week for our DFS episode. We will have a free DraftKings contest going this weekend, and it's always fun to play. If you don't have experience, that's a great time to come join us in the free contest.